A mistake at sea. How one man survived the open ocean. The Gulf of Mexico stretches across nearly 600,000 square miles of water. Its boundaries are defined by the curve of the American coastline and the Yucatan Peninsula, creating a basin where the continental shelf drops away into depths that reach over 12,000 feet. The water here is warm, particularly in late autumn, holding the accumulated heat of the summer months. The Gulf's currents move in patterns established over millennia, predictable to those who study them, invisible to those who are caught within them. In November, as the season transitions, the water temperature ranges between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. To the untrained observer, these conditions might seem hospitable. They are not. On the evening of November 23, 2022, the Carnival Valor was positioned in the Gulf, approximately 150 miles off the Louisiana coast. The ship is a cruise vessel, part of a larger fleet operated by Carnival Cruise Lines. It measures 952 feet in length and carries approximately 3,000 passengers on each voyage. That evening, most passengers were settled into their cabins or distributed throughout the ship's restaurants and entertainment venues. The sun had begun its descent, moving toward the horizon in the way it does in late autumn, quickly, without ceremony. The deck areas of the ship were quieter than they would be during daylight hours. Some passengers moved through these spaces, others remained indoors. The ship maintained its course through the water, moving at a steady velocity, indifferent to the individual humans aboard it. James Michael Grimes was 28 years old. He was born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, a city in the southern part of the state, approximately 120 miles west of New Orleans. He worked in construction, a trade that requires physical stamina and practical problem-solving. He described himself in later interviews as an average guy. He liked hunting and fishing. He enjoyed being outdoors. These were not unusual interests for someone from his region and background. Hunting and fishing are part of the culture of rural and semi-rural Louisiana. They are ways of life, not exceptions to it. Grimes had taken a cruise to celebrate Thanksgiving, a holiday that marked the end of the year's hunting and fishing season. This was a vacation, a departure from the routine of work and the outdoor activities that structured his time. He had booked passage on the Carnival Valor for what should have been a straightforward 4-day cruise. The evening in question was Thanksgiving Eve. Grimes was on one of the ship's exterior decks. The specific circumstances of how he came to be overboard are not entirely clear from the available accounts. Some reports indicate that he fell. Others suggest variations on this basic fact. What is documented is this. At some point during the evening of November 23, 2022, James Michael Grimes went over the side of the Carnival Valor and into the water below. The distance from the deck to the water was approximately 60 feet. The fall itself would have lasted seconds. The impact with the water would have been sudden and complete. When Grimes surfaced, the ship was already moving away from him. The Carnival Valor does not stop for individual passengers. Its engines continue their work. Its course remains fixed. Within minutes, the ship was no longer visible to him. Within minutes, he was alone in open water in the Gulf of Mexico. The immediate concern in the first moments after going overboard would have been orientation. Grimes needed to understand where the ship was, whether he could call for help, what resources he had available. He was wearing clothes, casual evening wear, not survival gear. He had no life jacket. He had no flotation device. He had no signaling equipment. What he had was his body, his ability to move through water, and his consciousness. The water temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit would not cause immediate hypothermia, but it would cause gradual heat loss over time. This is the central equation of survival in open water. Time multiplied by heat loss equals outcome. Grimes began to tread water. This is a basic survival technique taught in swimming lessons and water safety courses. It involves moving the legs in a vertical scissor pattern while using the arms to maintain stability and keep the head above the surface. It is exhausting. It requires continuous muscle contraction. It cannot be maintained indefinitely, but it can be maintained for hours if the person performing it has sufficient physical fitness, sufficient mental discipline, and sufficient motivation. No one on the Carnival Valor reported seeing him go overboard. This is significant. The ship is large. The number of passengers and crew is substantial. The deck areas, while quieter in the evening, are still spaces where people move and occupy themselves. yet no one witnessed his disappearance. This means that when Grimes went into the water, no one on the ship knew it had happened. The ship continued on its course. Hours passed before anyone realized he was missing. The discovery of his absence came from routine procedures. Cruise ships conduct mandatory muster drills and keep passenger counts. When Grimes did not appear for dinner or respond to communications, crew members began searching the ship. They checked his cabin. They checked public areas. They retraced possible routes through the vessel. After a period of systematic searching, they came to the conclusion that he was no longer on the ship. A report was made to the United States Coast Guard. A search and rescue operation was initiated. The position of the Carnival Valor was noted. The time he was believed to have gone overboard was estimated. The search area was calculated based on the ship's speed and direction of travel since the suspected time of the incident. The Coast Guard deployed resources to the area. This included cutters, ships capable of extended operations in open water, and aircraft. The search operation began in the darkness of the evening. By this time, Grimes had been in the water for several hours. The Coast Guard had no idea how long he had actually been missing. They did not know the exact moment he went overboard. They did not know his condition. They did not know if he was still alive. They knew only that a man was missing from a cruise ship and that they needed to search the area where he was believed to be. During these initial hours, Grimes continued to tread water. He was alone in darkness, in open ocean, with no immediate prospect of rescue. His physical exertion was continuous. His mental state would have moved through predictable phases: initial shock, attempts to process what was happening, realization of the severity of his situation, and then something more complex. A choice between despair and action. The accounts Grimes gave later suggest that he made a conscious decision to survive. He decided that giving up was not an option. He decided to continue treading water, to maintain his position, and to wait. The night was long. The water around him was black. The sky above was clouded, providing no starlight or moonlight to orient himself. The sounds of the ocean, the movement of water, the wind, would have been the only environmental input. He was treading water in conditions of near-total sensory deprivation, with the exception of the physical sensation of the water itself and the knowledge that he was alone. Hours accumulated. 1 hour became 2, 2 became 4. The muscle groups responsible for treading water, the legs, the core, the arms, began to accumulate fatigue. The body burns calories at an accelerated rate during continuous physical exertion in cold water. Grimes had no food. He had no water to drink beyond the salt water surrounding him, which would accelerate dehydration if consumed. His body was slowly being depleted of its energy reserves. The search operation continued through the night. The Coast Guard expanded the search area as calculations suggested where the current might have carried him. Aircraft with searchlights scanned sections of the ocean. Cutters moved through the darkness, looking for any sign of a human in the water. The odds of finding a single person in the open ocean are not favorable. A human body is small, the ocean is vast, darkness obscures vision. The search area is calculated based on estimates and assumptions. Many people lost at sea are never found. As dawn approached, Grimes had been treading water for approximately 14 to 15 hours. His physical reserves were depleted. The constant muscle contractions required to keep himself afloat had burned through the calories his body could access. Fatigue was no longer a minor concern. It was the primary threat to his survival. A fatigued person treading water will eventually lose the ability to keep their head above the surface. Drowning follows. The timeline for this was moving closer with each passing hour. During the morning hours of November 24, Thanksgiving Day, Grimes's situation reached a critical phase. His ability to continue treading water was diminishing. His arms and legs were experiencing the effects of prolonged exertion. His core temperature was dropping due to continued heat loss to the water. His mental state was under severe stress. He was still alone. No rescue had materialized. There was no indication that anyone was looking for him or that anyone knew where he was. At some point during the day, the exact time is not documented with precision, Grimes encountered something in the water. Accounts vary on what this was. Some reports suggest it was a shark. Others are less specific. What is clear is that he was confronted by a large marine animal. His response was to attempt to defend himself. The encounter lasted only moments. Whether there was actual physical contact is unclear from the available reports. What mattered was that Grimes survived the encounter. He remained in the water. He continued to tread. The daylight hours of Thanksgiving Day brought some advantages over the night. Visibility improved. The water was warmer in daylight as the sun's energy reached the surface. Grimes could see his surroundings, though what he saw was only water and sky in all directions. The vastness of his isolation became visually apparent in ways that the darkness of night had obscured. Throughout the day, Grimes remained in the water, continuing to tread. He had now been doing this for approximately 18 to 20 hours. The human body has limits. These limits are not fixed. They vary based on physical fitness, mental determination, age, and other factors, but they exist. Grimes was approaching his limits. His muscles were beyond fatigue. They were in a state of accumulated damage from hours of continuous contraction without rest. His energy reserves were depleted. His mind was facing the real possibility that he might not survive this. During the afternoon of Thanksgiving Day, the search operation was still ongoing. The Coast Guard had not given up. Multiple aircraft and cutters were involved in the search. The area being covered had expanded based on drift calculations. The ocean is not static. Currents move water and anything in it. Grimes was not in the same position where he went overboard. The current had carried him. The search area had to account for this. Late in the afternoon, an aircraft conducting the search spotted something in the water. A human figure treading water, approximately 150 miles from the Louisiana coast. The aircraft marked the position and radioed the information to the cutters in the area. A Coast Guard cutter altered its course toward the location. The distance to the man in the water was several miles. It would take time to reach him, but the gap between isolation and rescue was narrowing. When the Coast Guard cutter reached Grimes, he was still conscious. He was still treading water, though his movements had slowed considerably. The fatigue was extreme. The hypothermia was beginning to affect his cognitive function. He was dehydrated. He was at the edge of his physical and mental capacity. The crew of the cutter brought him aboard. They provided immediate care, warmth, fresh water, medical assessment. He was alive. He had been in the water for approximately 19 to 20 hours. The rescue brought the ordeal to its end, but not to its immediate conclusion. Grimes was transferred to a hospital in New Orleans for observation and treatment. He was evaluated for injuries, infections, and the physiological effects of prolonged immersion in salt water. The medical assessment found that he had suffered no serious injuries. The salt water had caused some irritation and minor abrasions. The extended exertion had caused muscle fatigue and soreness. The exposure had caused some degree of hypothermia, though not severe. He recovered quickly. Within days, he was discharged from the hospital. The incident raised questions about cruise ship safety, about how a passenger could disappear without anyone noticing for hours, about the protocols and procedures that might have failed or succeeded in this case. The Carnival Valor implemented additional safety measures. The cruise industry reviewed its procedures, but for Grimes, the immediate aftermath was simpler. He had survived. He had made a choice in the darkness and the isolation to continue fighting for his life, and that choice had been the difference between survival and death. In the weeks and months following his rescue, Grimes gave interviews about his experience. He described the hours in the water in straightforward terms. He spoke about the decision to keep fighting. He said he thought about his daughter. He said this thought sustained him during the long hours of treading water when his body was giving out and the end seemed near. He said he felt blessed to be alive. These statements were made without dramatic flourish. They were simple observations about what had happened and what had moved him to survive. The story of James Michael Grimes is a story about human endurance. It is about the capacity of the body to continue functioning beyond apparent limits. It is about the role of mental determination in survival. It is about the relationship between an individual and the vastness of the natural world, in this case, an ocean that is indifferent to human life and human intention. It is about the accident that changed his trajectory, the hours of isolation that tested him, and the moment when rescue arrived. The Gulf of Mexico continues to move through its patterns. The Carnival Valor continues to carry passengers on cruises. The systems that allowed Grimes to be rescued continue to operate. And the memory of those 19 or 20 hours in the water remains with him, a measure of what he survived, a marker of what the human body and mind are capable of enduring. A quiet fact about a man from Louisiana who fell into the ocean and made the choice to stay alive.